try to visualize what it was like through your eyes, but all I could see closed in on me, the fragility. Wish I could let you know that every passing moment will fall like the snow, not settling, disappearing without a trace before you. Let me be your eyes, let me guide your light through the darkness. Let me be your eyes, let me guide your light through the darkness.
Hi everyone, thanks for spending this lovely summery evening with us. I'm really excited about the direct input tonight. It's an artist that I've had the pleasure of kind of bumping into in many different guises over the years in both of our careers, and I've wanted to speak to Hinako for ages. Like, she's in the midst of a very varied and successful career. And when we do these direct inputs, we're always looking at like different stories behind artists and how they've become the people that they are. And, you know, we do kind of put a slant on the career, but I've just written tons and tons of notes because I just want to delve into that kind of creative practice as well in areas that I don't really know anything about. But all of these different elements have formed who Hinako is as a solo artist after sessioning for lots of different successful artists over the years, such as Georgia, Kae Tempest, Ellie Goulding, James Bay, just loads and loads of different people. It's one of my like great joys is to like, you know, catch somebody's live lounge on Radio 1 or like a TV appearance and see Hinako on keyboards. So over the last few years, releasing her own music is just like, it's been amazing to follow. So I'm going to bring Hinako in. If anyone's got any questions, like obviously just stick them in the chat and I'll try to professionally and seamlessly add them into our conversation as always. Oh yeah, as I was saying before we jumped on, it's so nice to see you. And
Kat, it's
like,
so nice to see you. Thank you.
listening to your music, like, you know, it's something I read somewhere, like somebody say, like, you know, don't listen to it and then operate heavy machinery. Like, I thought it was hilarious because it's very, you know, transporting and meditative and just, you know, beautiful to kind of listen to a body of work that just flows and makes sense as like, you know, as a whole piece. But what I really want to start with, and I think this is kind of quite a broad open question to go on, how does somebody who begins to learn classical piano as a small child end up this kind of obsessive synth like person who's just, you know, knows all about these analog synths and goes down the kind of really techie route? Like, how did that happen for you? Like, when did you discover that interest in technology and kind of incorporate that into your musical passion as well?
Well, that's a really nice question that I never really thought about before. But firstly, thank you so much for having me. It's such a joy to chat with you again and see you and do this. It's really an honour. I think actually I really owe it to my music tech teacher, Lloyd. So he was my teacher at Reigate College for sixth form. Up until then, I'd been learning classical piano and enjoying it, like really enjoying it, but also I feel like maybe how the framework was at the time that I was learning felt quite competitive to me, perhaps, or it was just in that particular type of learning that I was doing, perhaps, and I was looking for a different opportunity to, I guess, collaborate with other musicians. It felt, when you're doing classical piano, it doesn't always have to be the case, obviously, but for me, it felt quite solitary, and you weren't really playing with other people unless you're accompanying them.
Yeah.
Whereas the minute I went to college, you met all these amazing other musicians who were looking to start bands and things like that, and that was a real joy for me. And my music tech teacher is real, like a huge enthusiast, and he was very particular on analog. Like, he wouldn't ever let me use a digital synth. So I think it was from his love of synth and tech that really inspired me to just to explore more, and it kind of
Yeah.
has been an ongoing exploration. So I really owe it to Lloyd. I guess when you have those teachers that just really inspire you to just open your eyes to new things that you never knew about, I think that was exactly what he was to me.
I think you hear those stories, don't you, about those special teachers that have really shaped and helped people's progression and ambition as well.
Yeah.
Even at that point, though, why did you decide to do music technology at sixth form? Like,
I think so. I guess when we had the choice of A levels, I knew that I wanted to do music, but again, I think it was that thing. It's funny because now I appreciate classical music so much more than I think I ever did.
yeah,
I have so much admiration for it, and I'm sure I did at the time, but it was that rebellious teen thing when you're always looking for something else, something a bit different, and I knew that I wanted to do something in music, but it wasn't necessarily classical music. And music tech was also a way of then being like, oh, well, you can become an engineer. And I thought, that sounds really exciting, and I wanted to try that route. So I think that's when I sort of went down that branch rather than the
yeah,
performing branch, because I genuinely wasn't thinking I'd do any performance outside of my own comfort zone. Like, it was just something I did for fun in my own home. So I wasn't pursuing to become a performer, if you know what I mean. Like, it
yeah.
was always more like, what could I do behind the scenes that would still be connected to music? So that
So
was
you,
kind of an engineer mindset for me. I was like, I'm
yeah,
just going to record people instead, and
so you
um,
saw yourself more in like a supportive role than you did in the limelight.
absolutely, yeah.
So what changed?
To be honest, I've never really pursued being in the limelight, to be honest. It's kind of, I guess, with being a session musician as well, you are supporting the artist. You're not
Yeah,
necessarily seeking to be, in the center. But I guess also I discovered the joys of creating music as well. So it's not necessarily because I want to, present myself in the spotlight or anything like that. But I think I feel honored to be able to release stuff that I've worked on, and whatever guise that takes, wherever it takes you, I think is a joy. But it's not necessarily been the path that I was thinking I would want to do, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. So taking it further and going to university, like what did that do for your, like, if we look at it from ambitions and we look at it from like, thinking about careers and things that we can do and ways that we can collaborate and support others as well,
mm.
like what was going through that university degree like for you? Like, was there anything else that kind of happened during that period that you think kind of has formed like some of what, like, who you are at the moment or who you are now?
Definitely, I feel like every experience definitely has such a huge impact on who we become. College and uni for me, I think, were genuinely the best years. Like, I had so much fun. It was quite an intense course, and I loved it. And I have so much, what's the word? Gratitude for everyone that taught me there and everyone that I met there. Because even now, if you go to a recording studio, there's quite a big chance that I might bump into someone there that I went to uni with, or like but it's funny, it's crazy how small the world is, like
Yeah.
I've bumped into so many people. Even in the studio that I rent now in Tottenham, there's a few people in there that are from the same course at uni.
Oh,
It's a
wow.
really lovely network, and I think, I don't know, maybe it's just the orbits that we go in and it brings everyone together. But um, wait, I've gone off on a tangent. The question was, oh yeah, so I guess I learned a lot about collaboration. I learned a lot about working strange hours with people and bonding because of that. Because I remember one of the first studio sessions I had assisting for a friend was like midnight till 8 a.m. and I was in my first year at uni, and I was just like, it was so exciting for me, and it still is, like
Yeah.
at Twilight Zone, something interesting happens anyway. But for me, I was like, wow, people operate at this time, and it was all very new. So I think just learning a lot about, and just watching people that I really admire do what they do, and then you learn so much from that. So yeah, I learnt a lot at uni, and I think it's just the joy as well of creating with people that you might have just met, or people that you've known for a long time, but you get to connect in a different way in the studio, or whatever it is. Um, and technically, I learnt a lot. Like I think just by trial and error, or by learning from people that are visiting engineers, or it's a melting pot of people with very similar interests. So I think it's always an interesting thing that you take from it.
What like, when we first met, you were working in the music industry, and I didn't know you as a creative. I knew you as somebody that was working for a record label, like working for a distributor. How did that happen?
So I think, how did that happen? So my friend, my very good and very dear friend Will, was my boss for a very long time. So he actually was doing a PhD at the uni I was at, and actually I think it was even the last day of uni. I just handed in my dissertation, and I genuinely had no idea what I was going to do. Also, for perspective, at that time there was, I think, 30 of us in the year group, and we all had a placement year, but only maybe 3 or 4 of us got studio jobs, and
Right.
everyone else, there just didn't seem to be very many opportunities in the studio world at that time for people fresh going into the industry. So I think we were all kind of thinking outside the box and thinking, if that is the case, then what can we do that's related that we can enjoy? Will is running a label called Tickler Records, and he very kindly said, "Oh, I've got this label that I'm running. Do you want to come work together?" And he taught me so much, and continues to. But I think he then became part of, Believe were a distributor, so we started working with Believe, and then aside from working at the label, I ended up working at the distributor as well. So I think, yeah, really grateful to Will for just taking a chance on me and sort of bringing me into his world. And I guess from then, I'm sure it's the same in any industry, and I guess I'm being specifically about music because that's the only industry I've worked in, but I feel like everyone you meet, you end up sort of expanding your friendship base, and then it might take you on a different job completely. Like I didn't really foresee working for a label, but I guess it's also now as a freelance musician taught me so much about the inner workings of a record label, and it's been really, really helpful for me actually to know that, and then coming to release something, you understand how it all works. Not all of it, but you understand the basics of how something works.
I think it's the framework, isn't it? Because I feel like, the way that music was released even just a few years ago, I feel like the rules have totally changed. I feel like a lot of the rules have disappeared, and you can do so much and build plans and release strategies around mad ideas, rather than going, no, you've got to release it in this way, in this like formulaic way. But having that ground and having that framework from working for a distributor and a label must have been super useful when you were starting to think about releasing your own music.
Oh, 100%. Like, I think also just knowing the lead times of things. I know it sounds really vague, but you just know how many hours ahead of the thing, or how many days or months ahead of the thing it needs to be submitted, and what information you might need, all that kind of stuff, all the metadata, all that kind of stuff is actually, at the time, it was like, it was an admin thing where I was like, I need this, X, Y, Z, but now it's like, oh, okay, I need to actually prepare this information to send to someone else. So yeah. And also, it's so nice to bump into people still. Like, it's so nice to, whatever field you end up working in, it's lovely that you get opportunities to reconnect with old colleagues. And, I think it's a blessing, really.
I feel like it's certainly, the music industry feels like a place where people collect people.
Yeah.
But I think because everybody's roles change and everybody goes to different places. And, I've got some friends who have worked for the same place for so long, but it does feel like everyone does kind of evolve into different roles and do different things. And you collect people along the way. You never know where they're going to end up, and never know where they're going to be, or whether they're going to be a sick solo artist who's putting an album out on Houndstooth. But yeah, it does feel like, those people are there along the way. One of the things that I read, which I absolutely loved, is it seems to be like, there's a lot of things around your music that you call happy accidents, whether that's kind of experimenting with different synths and then, collecting those demos and collecting those different elements, or it's sitting on a flight with somebody.
Oh, right.
Like a pen pal, and then using their poetry on your album. Like,
Oh, Emily is wonderful. Like, I'm so grateful for that real chance meeting. Actually, it was really random how we met. But yeah, Emily Grosholtz is her full name, and she's an incredible poet and lecturer of philosophy, or professor, I should say, of philosophy. But yeah, really wild. Like, sometimes when you sat on a long haul flight and you never know whether to make conversation or not.
Yeah, I just go to no, like I just go.
But it's also a really long flight, and of course, like, if a meal's come in, you're going to talk to someone, or like if you need to use the bathroom, you're going to
Yeah,
have to say something. But it was just lucky that, yeah, we just had a really lovely chat for the whole flight, and then we exchanged emails. But yeah, but especially because I've been watching and admiring your work for such a long time as well, and along the way you must have also met lots of different communities of people. Like, do you still keep in touch with everyone that you knew from the beginning, or like do they reappear in different guises and stuff?
I think there's definitely people I cling on to for dear life. That have popped up in different guises, but I think it's very true what you said before about, like, the fact that you're in a studio space in Tottenham and there's people that are on your course. I do think people kind of gravitate back towards each other again. So for me, I mean, I've been in the industry now for about 17 years, which makes me feel ancient.
Not at all.
And it's kind of weird and wonderful how I get to collaborate with people that have played different roles in my career and in my personal life as well on different projects. So it's always amazing when that happens. It is, and it feels like beautiful and fortuitous and a privilege to be able to kind of like bring those people back in. I think that happens more and more, and I think particularly having a live space and a venue, and then people playing on the stage that I'd worked a single, on as a PR or at the start of my journey. Yeah, it does feel like it is one of those industries where you cross over so much.
Yeah.
And it just compounds that thing about it's important to be nice to people, it's important to respect people, because you don't just kind of like pass by and then drift and go on to something else. Those people come back. And I think that is particularly key for session musicians, which brings me on a nice segue into that. We work with a whole bunch of different musicians at Future Yard, and we're supporting people in their careers in lots and lots of different ilks. And time again, the conversation comes up around session work and how to be successful at it, and what is a good fit, like what are those qualities that get you hired, and that do you need to be professionally trained in that instrument, do you so many questions that get raised around session work. And I just wanted to dig into your experiences, because you've worked with big pop stars to really, really cool independent artists, which just shows that kind of adaptability. Like, how did you start getting into that? How did you start getting into that world?
It was genuinely another happy accident, I've got to say. Like,
I knew you were going to say that.
But it's true. It's funny. I genuinely didn't know that this was a job. This was a type of work that you could do. Like, it seemed like a dream to me that you could be paid to be, to be playing for someone else, playing someone else's beautiful music with them on stage. Like, I never knew. I didn't even think about it. I thought that artists would be performing with the bands that they recorded within studios. Like, it never had crossed my mind that you could be hired as a musician for live. But it was actually at the end of my uni degree. I think it was my 4th year at uni. I was playing in a venue in Kentish Town, the Bull and Gate. Do you remember that venue?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
With my friend. Like, I was playing. I guess he'd written the music, and I was sort of helping him perform it live. So I guess I was sort of a session musician then without knowing.
Yeah.
But I was sort of part of his band, and his friend had come along to the gig, and I think had seen us playing and had asked me, like, oh, do you ever do session work? And that's kind of how I first knew about it. And I did an audition for an artist that he was working with, and that I think that was my first work after uni, like after graduating from uni, was being a session keyboard player. And I kind of very quickly was taught the ways of this is how we tour, you sit in a van, you do this, you've got to prepare this in advance, and I genuinely just fell into it. And I think that kind of was such a lucky thing for me, because I I wasn't really, I didn't ever foresee myself performing as a career. Like it just hadn't crossed my mind. So, and I guess through that, like the first, like we were saying with connections, like I think I met people through there. Then they introduced me to other people, and I guess it very gratefully it's kept continuing since I don't know when it was when I left uni, 2011, I guess. Yeah, 2011. Ancient.
Wow.
But yeah, so I think ever since then I've just been feeling incredibly grateful that most of the opportunities that have come since then have come from the one after that and then the one after that, and it's
Yeah.
just been a very lovely thread of friendship, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Like it's, yeah, I don't know, I guess this industry does feel like a big family in a way, and
It
once,
does. And I think it
yeah,
thrives off personal recommendations as well, doesn't it? It's just like
yeah,
there's so many people out there. And I
mm,
think given we talk about the stresses of touring and the effect that it can have on mental health, is that you need a solid, if you're a solo artist or a band, you need, a solid team around you that are gonna keep you on an even keel in on those like longer tours. Like what was
mm.
your first experience of touring like? Because if you do, the type of things that you've studied at uni and working with a record label, did you feel a bit kind of thrown in at the deep end when it came to touring, or like what was your first experiences?
I mean, I guess I was thrown in the deep end, but in a really good way. I think because you learn so much from just learning on the fly as well. But I was lucky enough to do it with a really close friend, with Georgia,
Great.
and it was amazing learning. I've learned so much from G. Like I really, yeah, just very grateful for all the things that she showed me. But yeah, I guess my first tour was with G opening for another band, or like opening for, yeah. So it was like I don't think I ever did a headline tour with Georgia actually, but I think also all the bands that we opened for or toured with have been so kind and really supportive. Took them, we sharing tour buses. Like
Yeah.
their crew were also super helpful and lovely. And actually, my very good friend Jamie, I met on the Hot Chip tour when Georgia opened for Hot Chip, and we're now working together. Like he's very kind. He's in front of house for my live shows now.
Oh, amazing.
Like 8 years later after we met,
Yeah.
So it's really nice. Like it really is like a thread that kind of comes full cycle in a way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I loved it. I think any type of tour as well, you learn so much. Like from the really, really sort of high end pop tours where everything is, there's a huge amount of people working. It's amazing to see that sort of happen, but also the very DIY style as well. Like there's so many positives to both. Like
Yeah.
there's so much that you can learn from both experiences that I think it's really important to experience all types of that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. So when you were working with Georgia, like she would
Mm.
have been new as well. Like she would have been at
Yeah,
the
it
start
was. I
of
think
her
it was the
journey. I know
first.
that
Yeah.
she's been around music her entire life. Like she's definitely been one of those festival babies that's got ear defenders on it and stuff. But
Mm.
that must have been such an experience for both of you. Like if you were kind of both at the start of that journey of going on those tours together, it must have been quite special at times, I can imagine. And she's such a great character as well. So
Oh, I adore her. She's like a sister to me. But no, I'm just very honoured that I could have been a part of. I don't know, like yeah, whatever. She's on such a beautiful journey, and it's magical to see. And it was
yes,
really, really fun to be a part of the first part of that, I guess. But yeah, it's beautiful to see what she's doing now, and yeah, very exciting.
when you were starting to get into that world,
Mm.
could you, in your head, could you see that that was what your pathway was going to be? That was just like, right, okay, oh God, I'm on stage now. Like this is who I'm becoming. This is who I am. I'm now a performer. Like, or did you just see it as a sideline to doing the other things that you were doing? Like, was there a moment when it,
Mm.
it flipped, like where it was just like, right, okay, I'm actually like, I'm on the stage in front of people, and this is what I'm going to do.
I think I think so until 2017. So I think a good few years of session playing, I still had a full time job. I was
Right.
working at a music equipment manufacturer, and sort of that was my 9 to 5 basically.
Yeah.
It was a very creative job, and we'd often go to festivals like Sonar or like all sorts of tech festivals because I guess it was very tech focused. So I felt still quite involved in the live side of things, but I could only really commit to doing weekend gigs or like gigs
Right.
where I could
Okay.
take days off work. And
Yeah.
they were very supportive because they're a music company, but I didn't ever do it full time. And then it got to 2017, and I guess the artists I was touring with were getting quite busy, and I thought I'm gonna just try and see what happens, and just and if it doesn't work out, then I'll figure something else out. I just sort
Yeah.
of made the jump, and I'm really grateful that I did. Like I loved working where I was, but ultimately, I knew that personally I didn't really suit an office environment very much, and I preferred collaborating with other people.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily think it would be performing, but I'm really glad that it was because I do really enjoy it. So I guess then when I had the freedom to fully assign the time that I had to be more open, if a tour was to come up, I could actually say I can do the whole thing
Yeah.
rather than I could
Mhm.
do a couple of days a week.
Yeah.
Um, I think that was the point where I thought I'm just going to try my best and see what happens. Um, I don't know if that answers the question or
Yeah.
not.
I mean, I think it is. It sounds like it was that moment, like in 2017. It was just like, right, I'm going to open myself up to opportunities.
Mm,
Like, that I'm going to take a stab at this and not get rid of that safety net of a salary and go
mm,
freelance. Just see where it takes me.
yeah,
So
yeah.
when did you start thinking, hold on a minute, I'm gonna be an artist. Like I'm gonna create my own music and I'm gonna share it with other people.
Um, I mean, I'm still kind of
Or
learning
was
on the fly, to be
was
honest.
that conscious? I guess if you're surrounded by those instruments and you're, experimenting with different sounds and tones and textures and all of those different things, like, was it a conscious decision to be like, right, I'm actually gonna do something with this?
I guess not really, but I really owe it to two magical people in my life. One of which is Will, who I mentioned earlier. He, as well as running the label that we were working on together, he ran a different label where he released singles of friends and people that he liked their music. And he basically said, "Oh, why don't we release something? Like, just send me anything you've got and let's see." And pressed the 7 inch, and oh no, it was a 12 inch. It was a 12 inch. It was a single, but it was yeah. And that was like my first taste of like, oh, this is a product and it's got my music on it. It was kind of
Yeah,
wild to me. But also my dear friend Hannah Peel, who's an incredible. Do you know Hannah personally as well? Like,
don't know personally. I absolutely love her music. Like,
she's incredible and big fan of hers, and I'm also really grateful for the encouragement she gave me. So Hannah used to run these coffee sessions. I think I'd call it, I don't know, like a coffee and a pastry sessions in the morning, where we'd kind of get together. There was a small group of maybe 8 of us, and we would gather at her studio in the mornings,
I've
and
heard about
it was
these
lovely.
kind of feel coffee mornings like
Yeah, it was
that.
really nice. I can't even remember when it was. It must have been around 2018 or something like that, or maybe before then. But we'd kind of get together, and it was like not a support network, but well, it was a support network, but it was kind of more of a get together of close-minded friends and
Yeah.
discussions and how we can, if anyone had any advice, someone would say, "Oh, I'm about to release this thing. What do you think about this press?" Or like, "What do you think about this radio situation?" And we'd openly discuss it and help each other. Um, but at that point, I hadn't really ever thought about making anything. And Hannah very kindly said, "Oh, do you fancy remixing? I've got, I'm creating a remix release of my last record." Basically, very hugely took a punt on me because I hadn't really ever released anything properly, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm really up for it, and tried it, and I loved the experience, and I think I ended up getting played on radio or something like that, and it just gave me this like little window into seeing what that world was like, and I was like, oh, I just love the experience of creating something. So I think that definitely, yeah, just opened my mind up to what it could be like to create and release music.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I think it kind of shows the importance of the validation that a radio play or a supportive group of friends can do when
Mm,
you're like entering into that world. Like that's really special.
I think the friend support is the most incredible thing. Like, I think to be to have the opportunity to talk through things with people that you really admire, I think is such a huge huge help in all respects. And even now, like when you have something that you haven't released or that you're working on and you're not sure about, just to send it to someone that you really love,
Yeah.
just gets it outside of your head, and you can like approach it from a different angle, like just knowing that it's with someone else. Just, I don't know, it just resets my head in that way, and it's quite nice to, yeah, it's just nice to collaborate with people that you love. It's such a joy. It's yeah. Sorry, I'm just tripping up on my words here, but basically, love, and friendships and people that you admire is everything.
So, so with that first release, like I read that it was based on the fact that you were having like a series of migraines.
Oh yes, that was actually
Was that
not the single that Will
that
released,
was
but
the
it was
EP that
yeah,
came
it was an EP
afterwards?
after, yeah.
Like, I mean, tackling, I think, trying to kind of pull together the sonics of something that you're going through every day that's affecting your life seems to be like, the pathway that you've kind of taken your music to, where it's kind of inspired by the way that you feel or the way that you want to feel. And, like using music as a therapy, basically using it as that kind of like, you talk about getting someone else to listen to it and it's handed over to somebody else and how that feels. But it feels like that's really a formative part of what you do. Like, how do you even tackle, trying to kind of evoke a feeling of a migraine into music? Like,
It's a good question. I don't know. I think you just sit with what you're feeling and see where the synths take you in a way. I don't know, but
yeah.
it's funny because it's quite. I don't feel like I can really listen back to the EP anymore. It's so interesting.
I'm surprised.
But but I think also I think it's trying at the time I was trying to I don't even know how to even say it in words. But like when you can see something. Actually, this is really interesting. I saw a painting that someone had made of what they experienced when they had a migraine.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was trying to do, but because I'm visually I'm not very good at doing that visually. And I thought, well, how can I portray that in a way that I can sort of document? I think that was what I was more interested in, is to just get the ideas out and sort of have a diary of some sort. I don't know. I didn't really ever think it would get released, really. It was just something that I wanted to make. But yeah, it was interesting seeing the drawing, because it was quite similar to what my own experience of it was.
Yeah.
But it's hard to fully portray something that isn't a tangible thing that you can touch, or I don't know, it's weird. Luckily I don't really get them much anymore, but yeah, I don't know. But I guess with any music, it's conveying something that you're feeling, and however that comes out is part of the process, isn't it? Whether
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I don't know, whether it's just improvising and seeing what comes out when your fingers hit the instrument, and seeing how the waves coming from you translate into the instrument and then comes out as sound waves. Like it's all sort of transferring of energies, isn't it? And seeing what comes through and what works, I guess. Or what doesn't work, that's also fine.
Thing, did you have at that stage, even, you talk about, I didn't even know I was going to release that. Like, had you thought about like a kind of longer body of work, what a Hinako album would look and sound like?
Well, the funny thing is, the album that came out last year, I didn't write as an album. It's so weird. Like I didn't ever foresee it again coming out as an album,
Yeah.
but I very kindly was asked to submit some music for WOMAD. They were doing an online festival during the pandemic, so that was in 2020. And they said, oh, you have 40 minutes. If you have a 40-minute body of work that you'd like to share, and then we can put it as part of the festival. So I finished this thing literally in my bedroom, and it was really nice to have that challenge and a deadline, because it was really, at that time, I guess we were all at home and I didn't really know what I was doing. There was no touring.
Yeah.
I had all my gear at home in my bedroom, and it was very, like, I was literally on top of it, so I guess I might as well have played it. Like, it was all surrounding me. So it kind of gave me that experience to put something together, and I wanted to make a cohesive, like, one, almost like it was one thing. Like, so
Yeah.
even if it was lots of tracks, to just sort of
it just flowed
seamlessly flowed. Yeah. And then when I finished it, they very kindly said, "Oh, you know, it's the rights are yours now after it streams and after we've had it online for a month or whatever." So I thought, well, I might as well release it because it's done and be nice to share it. But I wasn't necessarily thinking I need to do it this way, this way, this way. It was just like, well, I've got it, so I might as well. And it was just a beautiful synchronicity that I was connected with Houndstooth through Kate, the press, Kate who works at Stereo Sanctity, who's an amazing press person. She connected me with Houndstooth, and it all happened in a very beautiful way that I never imagined.
But, I mean, I guess if it's like, you know, create this 40-minute but like performance, what it is, isn't it? It's a record, it's an album. So how did that work? So did you do a lot of it at home, and then you got the opportunity to go to real world studios, and like what was the whole process of that live performance? Because I know that you went out and got loads of sounds from nature and used a lot of different kind of like, you know, new technology and amazing equipment to kind of capture the feeling of the record, I would say, as well. Like the way that it makes you feel is captured by that kind of like spatial technology that you used for it as well, didn't you?
Oh, I'm so honoured to be able to access the equipment they have. Like, it's crazy. Have you ever been up to Real World before?
No, I've never been.
That's really, you must. It's so
Peter
beautiful.
Gabriel's.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like a fairy tale. It's in Box near Bath, and it's like this beautiful studio in the middle of a woodland almost. But it's also surrounded by areas of natural beauty. Which is a term I never knew until I went up there. AONB, like when you see lots of parks and they say AONB after, it's like, I guess, a protected area or something like that. But basically, I knew that we had, so I think there was something like 8 artists that were involved in this online festival, and then we all had one day at the studio to do whatever. So it could be that we took all our instruments up and then just recorded a live session there. It could be that we could mix something there, and I thought, I kind of denied about improvising there, and I thought actually it'd be quite nice to just take something up and take the pressure off and actually mix it in the space and take time to make it as representative of the space and where we were and everything like that. But then I thought it could be really nice, given the circumstances that we were in. Like, I think the restrictions are pretty tight still. Like, there was certain things that we couldn't do. So I wanted to be able to bring nature to everyone in a way that if you were, I don't know, living in a city with no forests nearby, or if you didn't have a garden space you could access, I wanted to try and create an atmosphere that with the headphones you could feel like you were in a forest, or, you know, somewhere that you could access the nature sounds. Because it really, I don't know if you feel the same, but when I'm walking around and I hear the sounds of birds or trees or whatever, it just sends me somewhere completely.
Absolutely.
Like, it really calms you down, I think. And with, you know, I think it is a scientific thing that it does calm our nervous systems down. So I went up the day before, and with Katie, the engineer at Abbey Road, at Real World, we took out one of the binaural heads that they had, took out the Tascam recorder, just a field recorder I brought with me, and popped the head in the middle of the forest or like by a lake, and just recorded the sounds that you would hear. But also the amazing thing about binaural mics is that you really do hear it like a pair of ears, because it is set out, the microphones are set out like the left and the right ear, and has the delays that a head would provide, you know. So,
it is actually a head, isn't it?
Yeah,
I've got that right. Like a binaural
it looks like a head.
head with 2 microphones in it. Yeah,
exactly. And I guess the point of it is also to not the point, but one of the things that is possible with it is that accurately portrays what a human head would hear, like in terms of a sound hitting this ear is going to be earlier than it hitting this ear, and sort of getting that balance. I've really gone on a ramble here, but we recorded the field recordings of that area, and then superimposed them with the music, and then mixed the album, or mixed the project there. So that was kind of we spent the day like piecing together the field recordings with the tracks, and then creating a cohesive flow of music, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
And also, like, you know, how the album's built on frequencies, right? That's, you know, that makes your brain feel different things, and getting to the end of that album, you're more in a like meditative like state because of the purposeful choice of those frequencies that you've put that music in. How did that come together? Like, how did that conceptually come together? Is it because you got that opportunity and you're just like, right, this is what people need. This is what people want in this moment in time. Like, you know, there's so many kind of like conscious and deliberate decisions and choices with this record that it's, you know, how did you find out about all of that? Like,
Thank you. Firstly, I genuinely, I think it's all things that I was really interested in, and I guess maybe I was channeling something from a message from somewhere else. I don't know, but I think it was things that I'd always had interest in, and I sort of had a rough understanding of. And I think, given this opportunity, I thought it'd be great to combine them, and we did some research. And I don't know. I mean, who knows? You know, who knows what the listener actually feels? But I think that was my intention going into it anyway. And if it translates, then that's the best thing I could ever hope for. But yeah. Everyone's ears are different. We're all very different, so
everyone's level of anxiety is different as well. So, you know, whatever state you're starting in, where does it take you? It's endless, isn't it, really? Like how different people can experience music and experience those particular frequencies too. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, you know, like having the opportunity of going to that studio, like, and the new technology that is around that kind of, you know, really helps us listen to music differently than we've ever been able to. It's a lot more than just kind of, you know, going from mono to stereo to now being like, you know, to use like spatial technology. How, like, do you have not a preference, but, you know, for the interest that you have in like analog synths, and then this new technology that that is ever evolving as we're going along, you know, where does your passion lie? Is there somewhere where you would rather be? Like, would you rather kind of delve into those kind of classic sounds of those Moogs and those like Roland like synths, or is it like, oh my God, look at what you can do now, let's have a go with that? Like, what excites you?
That's a really interesting question, and I wish I had a good answer for that. I feel like, given what we studied at university, I wish I could say I'm always looking to get into the next new technological thing, and I am genuinely really excited about all the new technology, and I think it's amazing what you can do now that I couldn't even dream of ever doing, you know, when I was a teenager or whatever. But I also think whatever the project that you want to realize, and whatever the journey that it takes you on, what am I trying to say? I feel like I'm not necessarily bound to ideas of having to do something in a certain way. Like, I think I prefer to just see where it naturally goes. Like, for example, you might be working on a project and you might just only have, I don't know, like one microphone that you know isn't going to really capture the frequency range that you want to, but you know that you have it there, and you know that you've got this thing that you're burning to get out of you, then that's it. Like, that's what you can do, and that's the medium you have, and that's maybe what it was meant to be like, you know. I think I don't really know how to say this without I think before I was getting really stuck on the technical things where I had to record something in a certain way to make sure that it was like the best possible way. But now actually, maybe now that I don't really have, I don't know, there's no way of doing anything right or wrong. Like, there's no particular way that you have to do something, and as long as it means you're getting the thing across that you want to, then that is the best thing, I think. Like, and you can always do things in post. Like, I think a lot of people now remix stuff in Dolby Atmos, and that sounds great, you know. And but then not everyone has a Dolby Atmos system, so it's like, it's finding the correlation of, I think, trying to communicate what it is that you want to communicate in the best possible way that you can. It's a dream if you have all this access, you know, the access to the binaural technology. I couldn't have imagined a more incredible scenario for this last record that I had, and I feel so honoured to have been able to done it in the way that I did, and I was able to. But then again, equally, it's fun to experiment with. I don't know. It's good to have limitations too, I think, maybe is what I'm trying to say. But it doesn't really matter if you don't have access to all the high-end equipment
Yeah.
to make something that you want to.
Like, you know, the having, but getting access to that, to that type of technology, particularly the binaural stuff, and looking at, you know, the new way of working with like Dolby Atmos and things like that. You could go into that either thinking it's freeing, or you could go into it thinking it's quite intimidating, couldn't you? Like, you know, just like
Sure. Yeah.
having those things in front of you is just like, oh, I don't, like, do I, and like, should I, and like, it must have been a really great experience to just go, oh my god, I get to have a go at this stuff, like, this is really, really cool.
It really was yeah, I'm very, very grateful for that experience, and I think to work with the engineers there that knew the studio obviously inside out, and we were able to do it quite quickly in a way that perhaps if I was by myself it would have taken me a very long time. Also, I think there are lots of different ways that the technology is also accessible. Like, I think I was looking at different binaural mics that you can even get for your mobile phone, you know, and you can take that out and clip it in and make something really amazing. So I don't necessarily think, I think sometimes the wording can sound not intimidating, but if it's something that you're not necessarily used to hearing, maybe it's difficult to try and translate that into a language that you would understand. But but I guess anything is doable, really. And it's nice to experiment with stuff. I think, yeah, experimenting and finding joy with finding your own path into it, I think is the thing, right? Because then you're excited about it, and you think, okay, so I'm going to experiment and do this, and then it might open up this door. And I think just finding your own path into it, I think is the, without sounding really cheesy, but you know, like, I think that's the key, isn't it? Just finding your own feet into it.
Yeah.
You don't feel so intimidated because you found it yourself in a way.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I wanted to ask you, which is something that I was wondering how much of a role this has played, is the fact that a lot of electronic artists that I've spoken to over the years have always been like, right, I've done this, like, I've created work that I'm super, super proud of in the studio, but how do I translate this onto a stage? And what I find really interesting with you is you obviously have that passion for that area of music, but you've come from the stage to releasing your own music. Has that informed how you translate your own music onto a stage as well, as the fact that that's kind of like where you're comfortable now after, you know, going on all of those tours, working with all of those artists?
Perhaps. And I think also, I mean, I'm sure it has, and I think also in a different way, working with the artists that I have, and I'm so incredibly honoured to have worked with them on the live side of things. They've definitely informed, or they've definitely taught me so much about how to be creative. So I think it's all fed into lots of different ways, and I've been so inspired by the people that I've toured with, and have learned just seeing how they create and how they interact with other people. I think it's also given me the opportunity to see lots of different ways to do things live. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's all trial and error, really. Like with the show that I'm touring at the moment, it really is. I just take one synth with me, and it's not the case of me just having used one synth on the record. Well, I only use 2 or 3 users, but I just have one. I'm limited to taking one mainly because of budget, because it's easy for me to travel with one keyboard, you know, rather than 3. But I think, again, having those limitations has been really fun, because it's not necessarily the exact sounds that I use on the record, but you kind of think, oh, well, if I loop this and add something else, and I don't know, you make it work, basically, with what you have. And that's also translated the record in a different way. So I think that's also a fun part of, I don't know, like, I think it's also quite fun for people coming to see records that they already know, to hear it in a different way as well. It kind of adds a different dimension to what you're used to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I don't know.
Definitely, 100%. And particularly with this record, because it is kind of like, it is a listen that you can fully immerse yourself in, put your headphones in, be on your own, and really just kind of like, you know, just, I mean, it's called a journey for a reason, because it really does feel like one.
Thank you.
But you know, for creating a record, which is kind of it's a very solo experience. It's very kind of like solitary. I'm gonna just immerse myself in it, shut out the rest of the world, and you know, like have a lovely time. Like, how does that translate onto stage? How does that immersive experience that people experience on their own transfer to a communal listening? Like, how's that been?
It's an interesting question because I guess it's more about the perception of the audience, isn't it, rather than what I'm doing on stage? Because it's more about how something is listened to in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I try and recreate the record as much as I can in the performance in terms of all the parts that I play live. There is some very basic track sometimes in things that I feel like it needs it, but for the most part, I prefer to keep it live because I feel like then you're really connecting with everyone in the room rather than being a slave to, like, not that backing tracks are a bad thing at all, but I think it keeps it more, I don't know, alive.
Yeah,
Also more prone to errors, and that can take something completely different in a different place, you know, like something might go wrong, but that's okay, you know, I think. But also, I think more so than anything, collaborating with Jamie, my friend who is mixing front of house, has been such a huge joy for me. And I think he has been so incredibly instrumental in creating the live experience, like working with a sound engineer that I really admire and trust. And I know that anything he is doing out there actually makes me feel really safe as well. You know, I think I used to talk about myself, and that was also a real journey. And I'm grateful to have done that because I think I learned a lot about, like, just tour managing myself, like, you know, the logistical stuff, which is great. Like, I think, and even touring with other people is still something I do, but I think having someone else to tour with has made me feel really, I don't know, it's just a different experience and I love it.
Yeah, totally. So when you first touring this record, were you just rocking up on your own, like totally just traveling about by yourself?
Yeah, and it's totally doable, and I did enjoy that as well. But I think having someone, I think obviously the sound is the key thing for a gig, isn't it? I mean, it sounds like such a silly thing to say, but but working with an engineer that like fully understands the intention of what you're doing, and Jamie has really created this immersive space. Like, we had an opportunity to do a show at King's Place where they had a D&B Audio Technic surround sound system. So that was a show that we were really able to hone in on the pre-production, and he would pan my vocals to, like, enter the room from the right and then, like, drop me off somewhere on the other side. You know, we had a load of fun with it. And actually, it's the system I used to mix the record in real world. So it was a joy to actually use that live as well. That was really cool.
That's amazing. That's such a great opportunity to be able to kind of replicate that in a big space. Like,
it was kind of wild that opportunity came up. It was like, what? But I think that kind of collaboration really does create the space for the audience, I think. So rather than what I'm doing, it's more what Jamie is doing at the front to create a sonic environment. Like, I'm sending him obviously just the stems of what I'm playing, and then he's creating this space that people are sitting in. So I think that is probably one of the biggest parts of the connection between the audience and the music, I guess. Yeah, like creating the environment. And yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. So I really, just I think that is the key thing, is how it's replicated at the front, you know, from through the speakers. I think.
I mean, it is a total privilege, it feels, to be able to kind of take somebody that gets your sound on the road with you and just have them be in that safety net that you're like, right, okay, this is how I want the audience to experience it, but I've got somebody with me that can help me get as close to that as possible.
100%.
One of the questions that I wanted to ask you is about kind of persona as a solo artist, as you know, as being like in a supporting role with central artists like Georgia and like Kae Tempest and everyone. Is that what that for you as a person, what that was like, kind of shifting the attention onto you, you know, doing press, being interviewed, having to do press photos, all of that. Like, how did that differ from being a session musician to being Hinako, like as the central character? Like, do you feel like that mentally, or like what was that like as a journey?
It's still a very much an ongoing journey, I think. But I'm just genuinely really excited to try new things, and it's been an honor to. I don't know. It's funny, like it's funny talking about the things that I don't know how to put this. But like this, for example, this is a huge honor for me because to be able to, I never really think about these things really if I'm by myself. So it's so nice to actually ponder these questions and be like, oh, what was the thought process behind any of this? But yeah, it's just a joy to connect with people in different ways, and I think. Yeah, I'm just grateful for anything, really. Like, genuinely, really. The press photos, I've got to say, has been a journey because I'm not very natural in front of a camera. But working with people that I love and who made me feel really comfortable has been the key thing. Like, just finding people that I love their work, and they've been kind enough to be open to doing stuff with me. I think that has been such a joy. But yeah, it's not a natural thing for me to pose for pictures or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big thing that I had to try and remove the personal bit from it and just do the thing, you know. But
I think when you are like that though, and goes for most people, is it's just another form of collaboration.
100%, yeah,
if you,
definitely.
even if you're an artist and you, for the majority of the work, you're solely creating, and like it might be that you're collaborating with a mixing engineer and a masterer, and or like somebody that's going to help you with your live or whatever it is, like that photographer, it should just be another person that you feel as comfortable with as you would with your music. That's the way that I was looking at it. It's just another collaboration. It's a gorgeous opportunity to create a visual representation of something that you've worked on for, that you've put like your blood, sweat and tears into. So yeah, no one's natural in front of cameras, man. Ages to kind of, like I used to be a PR and do interviews, and I never really appreciated until I was a few years in, I'm not going to lie, how odd a scenario it is for somebody to interview you and you have to talk about your project or have to talk about something or have to pull something out of thin air. And it took me a while and then in the end I was just like, doing press days with bands where I was just like, this is not normal. We just need to kind of get that out of the way now. This is not a normal scenario. You're not supposed to be comfortable with it, but we'll get there. Like, we'll work through it. And since we got this place, and I've had to do like loads more interviews and like podcasts and all sorts of stuff, and you're just like, God, if I had a PR who like listened to some of the crap that came out of my mouth when someone asks me a question, would be livid. So yeah, I think I don't think anyone should be concerned that they're not taken to it like a duck to water. But I like having read like some of your interviews in the lead up to this, you talk about your project so eloquently and you're so articulate when you're like explaining those things. So you've got absolutely nothing to worry about on that standpoint. What are you going to do next? Like what's on the horizon? Like where are you going to take this?
So there may be something coming soon. I don't know,
Oh.
but I'm working on new things. I also had an out of this world dream opportunity last week. So Elizabeth Alker runs, as well as her amazing radio show, she takes that to stage and she does a thing called Unclassified Live, where she invites people to come and perform their music with an orchestra. So I had this crazy opportunity on Friday to play with the BBC Concert Orchestra, which was like something I could only have dreamt of, really.
Wow.
And that has really given me like just the feeling of like, oh gosh, this is so like the collective energy of an orchestra in a room. It just made me think I'd love to do more things with an orchestra if I can. Yeah. So maybe I'll manifest that. I think it's just the joy. It's not just the joy. Sorry, the joy of playing with like 80 plus musicians and feeling that collaborative energy in the room is something like I think I never really got to play in a proper orchestra.
Yeah.
And I think it's just mind-blowing how everyone connects with each other in the way that they do, and watching the conductor, like Andre Derrida was the conductor for this show, and just watching him commandeer the ship like that. It was
Yeah,
really special. So I think, yeah,
it's
that's something I'd love to explore more, I think.
it's a mad feeling, isn't it, being that close to that many musicians all kind of doing what they're doing.
They're so
Like it makes
immensely
your whole body
talented.
rumble.
Sorry?
It makes your whole body rumble.
It does. I could feel the hairs on my arms just like having a, it was, yeah, really wild. So yeah, I would love to experience that again if I can in some way. But we shall
I'm
see.
sure that'll happen. Oh, thank you so much, Hinako. That was so
Thank you.
special. It was such a treat to kind of delve into that process and into that record and that EP specifically. Like it was just so great. I could talk for hours and hours, but I won't. Thanks for
Well,
being incredibly open and generous with your experiences. It's really great, and I hope to actually see you in real life at some point
I
soon.
know, it'd be so nice. I'd love to come and visit you and visit your lovely venue as well. I'll come and maybe hopefully come and see a show there or something. But thank you for making this such a beautiful experience. It's so lovely to chat with you, and I admire you so greatly. And thank you for making it such a safe space to chat. It's been really
Oh my god,
nice.
thank you. Yeah, we'll arrange something really really soon. But
That'd be lovely.
take care, look after yourself,
You
and
too.
see you. And I'll see everyone else really really soon as well. We're doing a lot of PRS applications at the moment, so
Okay.
it's yeah. So anybody that's watching that hasn't given me a shout out their PRS application, get in touch. Because it's the deadline's on Monday. But yeah,
Got
thank
you.
you so much. I'll see you really, really
Thank you.
soon. So nice to see you. Mwah. Bye everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.